Hello, thank you for having me. I guess the first thing to mention is it's hard presenting at the end of the day, but when you follow Taylor Swift, that is very intimidating. So anyway, all right. So I'll be talking about what motivates our members. We've asked them a few questions about that, and I'll share their responses. I'll also share some different analysis that has been done by external colleagues. And I did want to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands we're on today, and also those back home in Australia, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. What I will not do is claim to have all the answers. I think it will become very apparent that there are limitations in what this can tell us, but I shouldn't put your expectations, set them too low. Okay, so because we're an Australian panel, I thought I'd just kick off by telling you a little bit about us. We are a commercial panel, which makes us different to some of the others here today. We're used mainly by government, nonprofits and universities. Hi, Matt, Australian National University. When we built the panel, we were facing a very competitive environment with an uptick in non-prob panels and CADI response rates declining. We tend to follow the US in a lot of our survey trends. Ben would say we're about 2 years behind. So our panel has grown. So originally we were at about, we had 3,000, we'd get about 2,500 responses in each survey wave, and we would survey all our panellists. We now have over 10,000 panellists, and we can achieve about 7,900 surveys in a very topically interesting survey wave. Where we get decent response. We do still have an offline population who complete via telephone, but it's getting smaller and smaller in line with the offline population. What you'll see here is that we have been recruiting via text to web lately. In terms of why people join, well, you can see in our logo some of the things we kind of hung on to. We did do some cog testing to look at what sort of persuasive statements worked for people, and these are the sorts of things that we came up with. We have the flowers there because a big thanks go out to Pew and also to Geesis, who were very generous with their time when we were setting up the panel, and we did learn a lot from them. Okay, so does message equal meaning? I should mention actually all of the photos here are beautiful photos of Australia. If any of you have been thinking about a little move recently, I just last time I was here I did this, so I thought I'd just keep it going. Okay, so in 2019, we had a colleague who requested that they put a question on Life in Australia, asking our panellists why they join and why they continue to take part. So they did their analysis at that time, but what I wanted to talk about today was a paper from 2023. Paul Lavrakis and Sebastian Koka from ANU they did a study looking at the messages in the recruitment materials for our first 16 waves of Life in Australia. So that reflected the time period up to the point when they asked that question, or when Sebastian originally asked that question. And these are the sorts of statements that they pulled out. Interestingly for me, they're slightly different to what we thought we were including at recruitment. So the things that we emphasised, I guess what this does is tells us that cog testing is very important, or you know, that you don't really know everything. I'd hate to admit that, but yes, so these are the sorts of statements that they found in our recruitment materials. They were wanting to look at finding a low-cost method of increasing representation of underrepresented groups. Now, I just used their quote that 2 out of 3 ain't bad, because how do you get meatloaf into a presentation? I think that's so fun. So they were driven by the stuff that we've already talked about today. So our clients want cheap, awesome, quick results, and you can't have everything, and their concern is that we would trade off quality. Obviously, I would like to think that we don't do that. So these are the sorts of things that we would do to make sure we're not. So we took from that we just need to ramp up the motivators that work for our cohorts of interest. For us, Ben has a trinity of trouble. Young people, less educated, and right-leaning. So we struggle to recruit them, retain them. We're really focusing on the left-leaning bias in our panel at the moment and how we can address that. So when they analysed panellists' motivators from 2019, well, we saw a lot of alignment with what, we had told them during recruitment and what the messages we continued to hammer home. So that's great that they're participating for the reasons that we hope they would. And the only statement of ours that wasn't mentioned as a motivator was the voluntary nature of the survey, which is fine, because that's there for a different reason, really. They did identify some missing motivators, so that it was thought-provoking to be in the panel and enjoying surveys, topics focused. It's because we didn't include topics in our recruitment materials. We didn't want to bias. So that was something we deliberately left out, and liking being part of something, positive sentiment towards Australia. I don't know how we'd work that into our materials, but it's really interesting that it came up in the member comments for their reason for enjoying being on the panel. Plus, they told us, very handy that they did this analysis for us, that males were more likely to offer wanting to make a difference as part of the reason for enjoying the panel, while young adults were more likely to mention the incentives. Right. So in Melbourne, we have amazing coffee. So when I think of quality, I think of Melbourne's coffee. Okay, so sure, we thought this is great stuff. We can do something with it. So what we've done so far is we've included member testimonials on some of our materials, like brochure for recruitment. We've shared some information on the sorts of topics we might cover very broadly, and we do share findings. We've created a panel portal, so we're trying to create that sense of belonging. We've increased the emphasis in our recruitment materials of things that work with the young, with the males in this case, and we've offered more flexible rewards in the hope that that sort of making the incentives more accessible will help. Sure. Yes. What else? Okay. Right. We have done other things. So this is our member newsletter from the end of last year. We try to make it relatable. So you'll see sometimes we highlight a member of the team. In this case, it's Ben with his pups. And he's thrown in a cute photo as well, which I thought was great. We share how much our panellists have donated to charity. This is the panel portal. So we use that in recruitment now. So at this year, we've also asked for more feedback from panellists. I'm just going to speed through now because we're running out of time because I got too excited. So we did an experiment this month, actually, in our recent recruitment top-up. And we were looking at tennis, if you like tennis, Australian Open. So we get very low response rates for our text to web surveys, but they pick up young people, so they are important as a recruitment method for us. We can do these because we don't have that blockage. So we tried out these different messages, and wow, they flopped. You know, we were trying to get our right-leaning folks, no good. So, and in January, we asked them their reasons for being involved. We saw, and we actually adapted that list from Paul Avrakis, and we saw that the reasons were fairly, I guess, similar. But when you ask for main reason, rewards stands out fairly clearly. There's not much more I want to say about that. And we've found some ways to boost the inclusion of the right wingers. Right, so we've got a heap more analysis to do. So very excited to share that with you in future. We're also looking at panel conditioning, which is an ongoing issue for everyone. And we want to continue learning from everyone.
Well, thanks, Anna.